Time for a new what if. This is what if Shallot was canon. Our young Saiyan would be seen crashing down into Capsule Corp. This would wake the Briefs family. Tights and Bulma would be kids and would have their father come investigate it. Dr. Briefs would come out and pick up the toddler. The boy would look confused. Dr. Briefs would ask he knew his name. The child would say Shallot, seemingly being the only word he knew. He would then begin to settle into his new home. Shallot would know he was a Saiyan and would accept that this was his life. Some years later, his sister would burst into his room, interrupt his training. She talk about looking for Dragon Balls around the world. This would pique his interest. They would be off. They would meet a boy with a tail just like Shallot. Bulma would point it out. Goku would realize it as well. Shallot would tell Goku he was a fellow Saiyan. Goku would deny it until Shallot explained to him some similarities they have, showing sympathy, telling Goku he didn't remember anything about his parents or family. His sister's friend Jocko would tell him how dangerous and evil Saiyans were. Goku would still deny it, but it still would be in the back of his head. Goku would then ask Shallot for a sparring match. Shallot would agree and would get pumped. Goku would have more discipline and skill than Shallot did, clearly. Bulma would clown her brother and Shallot would just ask to move on. Now we would skip to Goku and Shallot's training with Master Roshi. A young monk named Krillin would show up and become a rival to the boys. But instead of him being a jerk in the beginning, he wouldn't think Goku is a freak of nature. He would just feel he is the weird one. The boys would befriend Krillin by making him feel better and making him stronger. Since there is someone to match up with Goku's strength, they all are stronger than usual. Time to fast forward to the Demon King Piccolo arc. Everyone would be celebrating after the tournament, and Krillin would leave to go get something. With the boys both sensing something terrible, would rush out to find Krillin. They would find his lifeless body. Shallot would punch the ground heavily, cracking it. After being informed of who killed their friend, they would rush towards him. The Shallot would make quick work of Tambourine as Goku would search for King Piccolo. They would eventually face off with him. They would fight him and sink, inevitably killing him. Goku and Shallot would leave to train with Kami for 3 years. While they were training, Shallot seemed to muster random abilities. He and Goku were sparring and Shallot would end up shooting a lime energy blast, calling it his wild cannon. He would also end up acquiring flight, which he taught Goku. 3 years would pass and the boys would be super strong. They would seem unrecognizable to the Z fighters. After catching up with everyone, we may now start the tournament. Everything would go the same until Krillin's fight. He would fight Shallot. Krillin would be made quick work. Shallot would then fight Piccolo. He would see Goku eagerly watching and Shallot would smirk and scratch his head and forfeit. He would give Goku the opportunity to fight Piccolo. Piccolo would be enraged at Shallot for taking him for a joke. Goku would then defeat Piccolo slightly easier than before. Shallot would see his best friend go on to get married and start a family. He would feel bored with his life until he ran into someone he met some years back. This would be Ranfan. He met her after the world tournament from when he was a kid. He remembers her teasing him when calling him a squirt. He was older and could prove he was more mature. She would end up moving into Capsule Corp with him and marrying him. Shallot would pretty much bully Yamcha and even developed hate for him when he found out he cheated on Bulma. Sooner or later, he would end up having a child, naming him Gabe. The boy would grow up training with his father even as being a toddler. The boy would wear a red hoodie over the Saiyan armor his dad wore. Something about the hood his son wore made him have visions of a man who looked like his son. Shallot would act as if they never happened. His wife Ranfan had calmed down over the years, realizing whenever her husband felt uneasy, as well as keep her son in check. The boy would have a personality like Gotenks, but with more discipline. Sooner or later, they would go to Kame house with Bulma. They would appear seeing Goku and his son. Gabe would be bothering Gohan about training, hoping he was strong enough to fight. Gohan would deny it and Gabe would be disappointed. Little did he know, this would be a small motivation for Gohan, as everyone would be catching up. A man with spiked hair would land in front of them. He would claim to be Goku's brother. Before Goku could deny, Shallot would step up. Shallot would ask if he is a Saiyan, how did they end up on Earth? Raditz would reply telling them that their father sent Kakarot here telling Shallot he doesn't know how he got there. He would then realize that Shallot wore ancient Saiyan armor. Shallot would be confused, stating he arrived here with it. Raditz would then end up trying to force them to come with the other Saiyans. They would refuse. Raditz would then try brute force. After easily defeating Raditz, he would beg for mercy. They would try to leave, and Raditz would have tried to kill Shallot, and Goku would deflect it. Goku would punch Raditz in the gut, leaving him laying out in a wasteland. After waking up, Raditz would contact Vegeta. Vegeta would shut Raditz down, telling him he heard every word. Raditz would beg, and Vegeta and Nappa would disown him for being defeated by his low-class baby brother. They would state they were coming in a year to kill him and his brother. Raditz would end up running into a Namekian. He would tell him about what happened. This would be Piccolo. The Namekian would relate to him, telling him how he lost to him as well. They would end up training together daily. Raditz would be stronger. He would realize Piccolo knew where Goku lived. Raditz would get the directions and arrive at his brother's home. Goku would answer and would see his brother and would be on guard. Raditz would tell Goku to relax and would tell him about the Saiyans coming. Goku would be alarmed, and as Raditz walked off, Goku offered him a chance to train with him. Goku would also want to spar with him, sensing Raditz got stronger. They would get ready and clash. Raditz would swiftly punch and dodge as Goku would block and defend. Goku would kick Raditz down, and Raditz would quickly recover, coming back a heavy punch. Goku and Raditz would have a beam struggle. After it was over, they would laugh and lay on the ground. Goku would tell him that they should train with Kami. Raditz would tell Goku about Piccolo, and Goku would tell him about Shallot. The next day, the three Saiyans and the Namekian arrived at Canis Lookout. Kami would tell them that they were too strong for him to train. They would be disappointed until Kami suggested something else. He would tell them about King Kai. He would ask if they were ready to run on Snake Way. After Goku and Shallot vouching for them, Kami would take them to King Yama. After heavily pleading King Yama to let them get to King Kai, he would accept, strictly off of the strength of them defending Earth. They would then start their run on Snake Way. On Earth, Gabe would have known about this, would call Gohan over to train his dad's gravity chamber. Now back to the heroes. On the way there, Raditz would tell Piccolo about the Namekians, as Goku would get into his brother's head about changing his ways, while Shallot would pick Raditz's brain about the Saiyans. They would eventually reach King Kai's planet, having to adapt to the gravity. The four would struggle to make King Kai laugh, until Goku said a very lame joke. Raditz would punch him in the back of his head, thinking King Kai would kick them off the planet for the heavily unfunny joke. King Kai would fall over laughing, eventually accepting them as his students. Piccolo would clothes beam Raditz and Shallot into more comfortable clothing. Raditz would like his new clothes, would be prepared to train. They would spend a year training with King Kai with Shallot and Goku learning the Spirit Ball. They all would learn Kaioken with Piccolo mastering it. He would use his regeneration to bump it up times 20. They would sense Vegeta and Nappa landing on Earth. Piccolo would have a personality as his Z counterpart, and Raditz being more mellowed out. They would rush to Earth as fast as they can. The humans would have been doing their own training, so they would be standing with the boys, preparing to fight the Saiyans. Krillin would be stronger but not enough to face them. Gabe would rush Nappa, and Gohan reluctantly follow behind Gabe. They would fight Nappa in sync. With Nappa getting damaged heavily, he would then plant the Saibamen. The green monsters would overwhelm the humans, and Nappa would start to beat on the hybrids. Just before he blasted Gohan and Gabe, Raditz would chop him in the neck and blasting him, ultimately killing him. Vegeta would be very confused with his scouter breaking while scanning Raditz. Shallot and Piccolo had arrived and killed all of the Saibamen, but Yamcha and Chiatsu were already dead. Goku would then step up to Vegeta, preparing for battle. Unfortunately, this is where part 1 would end. Like and subscribe.